When you think of the Amazon, what comes to mind? For most of history, it was this single image, right? A vast, untouched wilderness, totally impenetrable and hostile to any kind of grand civilization. But what if that entire picture we've had for centuries is just wrong? What if the jungle wasn't empty, but was actually hiding a secret, and not a city of gold, but something way more valuable? Today, we're going to peel back that green canopy to find a lost world that is making us rethink history itself.
It all kicked off with a legend so powerful it literally drove people mad. The hunt for El Dorado, a mythical city paved with gold. For hundreds of years, this was Europe's obsession, and it lured entire armies of conquistadors deep into the Amazon. They were hunting for a treasure kingdom, but you know what they found? A graveyard.
Okay, so get this. The biggest irony of all is that El Dorado was real. It just wasn't a place. It was a person, the Gilded One. The legend actually comes from a real ceremony of the Muisca people. So when a new chief came to power, they'd cover his entire body in gold dust. Then, they'd take him to the middle of a sacred lake and he'd wash it all off as an offering to the gods. So you see, it was a ritual, not a bank vault.
And this slide right here, this nails the fundamental disconnect, the moment where it all went so wrong. For the Spanish, gold was currency. It was wealth, a treasure to be taken. Simple. But for the Muisca, gold was theology. It was a sacred offering, something you needed to maintain the balance of the entire cosmos. One culture was talking about economics, the other was talking about cosmology. And that single, massive misunderstanding, it launched 500 years of totally doomed expeditions.
And so for half a millennium, this is what defined the Amazon for the rest of the world. This powerful myth, this golden mirage. In the minds of outsiders, it was either a treasure chest waiting to be cracked open, or it was just nothing at all.
But, eventually the jungle itself started talking. So let's get into part 2 and listen to those first whispers, the first clues that the myth of an empty wilderness was in fact a complete lie. As early as 1542, a Spanish friar, a guy named Gaspar de Carvajal, he travels down the Amazon and he writes about what he sees. These huge towns, wide roads, a thriving civilization. But when his report gets back to Europe, he's dismissed. They said it was just fantasy, the ramblings of a fever dream. And for the next 400 years, the idea of an empty, pristine wilderness just became accepted fact. The first real clue that Carvajal was actually right didn't come from a map or a story. It came from the ground itself. And that clue was something called terra preta, which means black earth. Scientists started finding these patches of incredibly rich, dark, fertile soil that just wasn't natural to the Amazon. It turns out it was engineered. It was a recipe, a mix of charcoal, bone, and pottery built up over centuries. These people weren't just farming the land. They were actively making it better, more permanent. This soil is an artifact, just as much as any pyramid. And it was the smoking gun, absolute proof that large, settled populations had thrived here for a very long time.
But okay, so you have these patches of amazing soil. How do you get from that to finding entire cities hidden under a canopy of 100 billion trees? Well, for that, you need a serious technological leap. And that brings us to part 3, the laser's revelation.
And this was the ultimate challenge, right? The Amazon canopy is so incredibly dense that you could literally be standing on top of the ruins of a massive city and see nothing but a green wall in every direction. You're completely blind. So, how do you make the forest disappear?
You use lasers. The technology is called LIDAR. So you fly a plane over the jungle and it shoots millions of laser pulses a second down into the canopy. Now most of them hit leaves and branches, but thousands find tiny gaps, hit the actual ground, and bounce back. Then a computer does something just incredible. It digitally erases every single tree, leaving you with a perfect 3D map of the bare Earth. It's literally like giving the planet an X-ray.
So before this tech, our view from above was just this, an endless, uniform, and what looked like an empty sea of green, a total illusion of absence.
But now, with the trees digitally stripped away, bam! The illusion is shattered. We see the ground, and it is covered in sharp angles, straight lines, and deliberate patterns. This isn't nature. This is human engineering. We are looking at the blueprint of a civilization. So what did these incredible laser maps actually show us? This is the grand reveal. Let's get into part 4, a world engineered. What LIDAR uncovered wasn't just a few scattered villages. It was a vast, interconnected network.
We're talking about raised causeways running arrow straight for miles and miles, enormous geometric plazas, and complex systems of canals to manage water. They even built their world in alignment with the stars. Archaeologists have started calling it garden urbanism, a totally different way of thinking about a city, woven directly into a productive, cultivated forest.
And the scale of it all is it's mind-bending. In just one region of Ecuador's Upano Valley, a single recent scan found more than 6,000 man-made earthen platforms, all of them connected by an intricate web of roads. I mean, let that sink in for a second. This wasn't a few scattered tribes. This was regional planning. This was a massive, organized society.
And just to give you some perspective here, these cities were bustling with life by 500 BCE. That makes them older than the Colosseum, older than most of Imperial Rome. But they were a totally different kind of city. They weren't built of stone and marble to conquer the landscape. They were built of earth and mud, designed to work with the forest, to breathe with the rhythm of the floods.
Which, of course, leads to the obvious and honestly heartbreaking question. If these civilizations were so vast, so sophisticated, so successful, where did they all go? And that brings us to our final section, Lessons from a Lost World.
The tragic answer is that these civilizations didn't fail. They were annihilated. When Europeans arrived, they brought invisible killers with them, diseases like smallpox and measles that the local populations had zero immunity to. The plague spread like wildfire down the very roads and rivers that held their society together, wiping out up to 90% of the people. And with no one left to tend the gardens or manage the land, the jungle just grew back. The pristine wilderness we thought we saw, it wasn't pristine, it was a grave.
And this brings us right back to where we started, back to the real treasure of the Amazon. See, it was never gold, it was knowledge. It was the wisdom of how to build a large-scale civilization inside the world's most complex ecosystem, not by destroying it, but by enriching it. They mastered sustainable soil management and agroforestry on a scale we are only now, and pretty desperately, trying to relearn.
And so we're left with this deeply urgent question. We are using 21st century technology to uncover this incredible ancient wisdom at the exact same moment that we are using our other 21st century technology to destroy the very forest that holds it. The library is on fire and we are just now learning how to read the books. So the real treasure of the Amazon was never gold. It was a garden of knowledge. And you have to wonder, are we finding it just in time to lose it all over again?